Welcome to today's lesson. Today we're going to look at birth control. At the end of this lesson, you'll be able to explain some methods of birth control, describe the benefits and possible risks of using contraceptives. So to start with, we need to understand what birth control is. So birth control is also referred to as family planning or known as family planning. In birth control, we're looking at methods that involve limiting the number of children and spacing of their births. So in short, with birth control, we're looking at methods that could be put in place to try and prevent conception or fertilization from taking place. So there are a number of reasons for which people might employ or make use of birth control. Among these reasons would be to give the mother time to recover from the effects of giving birth before she can have another child, and also to ensure that the child receives enough nutrition, clothing, shelter, education, as well as attention. You might have noticed that in most families where children are not spaced, you find that the children do not receive enough attention as well as nutrition. So these are cases where you have a large number of the children being malnourished because they are not spaced. So there are different methods that could be made use of for birth control. Among these, we have natural methods, we have chemical methods, mechanical methods, as well as surgical methods. So remember that these birth control methods are also referred to as contraceptive methods. Natural methods. In the natural methods, we're looking at natural ways in which people prevent conception. Among these, we have abstinence, the rhythm method, as well as the withdrawal method. So you need to know what is involved under each of these. So in the abstinence, we're looking at where a person completely avoids sexual intercourse, and this is the most reliable method of birth control. But of course, not everybody is able to completely avoid sexual intercourse. Like for example, we have married couples, isn't it? Other methods, we have the rhythm method, which is reliant on the woman's menstrual cycle. In the rhythm method, we're looking at intercourse being avoided at the ovulation period. But of course, this is also not very reliable because at times it is difficult to predict when ovulation has taken place. So in this method, we're saying that they look at ways of monitoring the female's menstrual cycle. So you could have things like measuring the temperature, because we know that during ovulation the woman's temperature is elevated. The other method that we have under the natural method is the withdrawal method, where we have the withdrawal of the penis before ejaculation. But of course, this is also not very reliable because it is possible for some semen to flow out even before ejaculation has taken place. Mechanical methods or barrier methods. In this, we're looking at ways of preventing conception by creating a barrier. So in a barrier, looking at ways of preventing the sperm and the ovum from interacting or from meeting. So in the mechanical methods, we have use of condoms, diaphragm, as well as the intrauterine device, which is commonly known as an IUD. A condom is simply a rubber sheath that is placed to stop sperm entering the vagina. Apart from preventing conception or being used in birth control, it also prevents sexually transmitted diseases. Then we have a diaphragm, which is a dome-shaped rubber barrier fitted into the cervix, which will prevent the entry of sperm into the cervix. We also have the intrauterine device, commonly known as the IUD, which is simply a plastic coated copper core, which is surgically inserted into the wall of the uterus. So the IUD prevents implantation. So what it does is that it irritates the lining of the uterus. That way implantation will not take place. Surgical methods. So surgical methods usually more permanent methods of birth control. So they usually involve a surgical procedure, no wonder they're referred to as surgical methods. So in these methods we have a vasectomy as well as a laparotomy. So a vasectomy is carried out on males where the sperm ducts are tied or cut. So what this entails is that even though sperm will be produced in the testes, they cannot live. So it is a very reliable method of birth control, as well as the laparotomy, which is carried out on females. In a laparotomy, we're looking at the cutting or tying of the oviducts. So this implies that the egg or the ovum cannot pass down from the ovaries coming towards the uterus, and if it cannot pass through the oviducts, meaning that fertilization will not take place, because remember that it is in the oviducts where fertilization takes place. So the surgical methods are among the most reliable methods that you could actually use for birth control. But there are methods that you'd employ when you know that either you do not want to ever have children or you've reached the number of children that you want to have in your lifetime. Last but not the least, we have chemical methods, which are simply methods that involve the use of a chemical substance. So in the chemical methods, we have hormonal methods as well as use of spermicides. So in the hormonal methods, we're looking at use of things like the contraceptive pill. So in the contraceptive pill, I'm simply looking at a pill that contains the hormones progesterone and estradiol. So the presence of these two hormones prevents ovulation. So if you can remember from the menstrual cycle, we said that the presence of progesterone and estradiol inhibits the secretion of follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone that are in charge of ovulation. So if a woman has got progesterone and estradiol within her blood throughout the month, meaning that ovulation doesn't take place in that month, and we know that if there's no ovulation, there's no fertilization, isn't it? Other hormonal methods also include things like the contraceptive injection as well as the contraceptive patch. So with the contraceptive patch, you're looking at a patch that is simply stuck on skin and it releases the hormones progesterone and estradiol over a period of time into the woman's bloodstream, which penetrates through the skin. We also have the use of spermicides as one of the chemical methods. So spermicides are simply chemical substances that kill sperm. The spermicides are simply inserted into the vagina, but it is recommended that spermicides are used in conjunction with condoms or the diaphragm. So in this picture, we can see some of the methods of birth control. We could see the condom, we have the cervical caps, which are the diaphragm. We can also see the surgical methods, the vasectomy and laparotomy. We can also see the IUD, which is the intrauterine device. So these methods, not all of them are very reliable. Among them, those that are very reliable include the use of the condom, the surgical method, as well as use of the intrauterine device. These are some of the very reliable birth control methods. Other methods like the natural methods, like the rhythm methods and as well as the withdrawal methods as stated earlier, are not very reliable. With the rhythm method, it is not easy to monitor a lady's menstrual cycle because it is affected by a number of factors, things like diet as well as change in the climate. All those things would affect the menstrual cycle. Then with the withdrawal method, remember that we have a small amount of semen that flows through even before ejaculation. But if you look at the surgical methods, these are permanent. So they would be the most reliable, but as I've said, these are very reliable and are only to be considered if one does not want to have children or they've had the number of children that they desire. we have come to the end of our lesson on birth control and also the end of our lesson series on reproduction in humans. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you for listening.